This is Scott Hamilton with Leeham News, and today is October 29th. I'm here with J.C. Hall, the chairman of the Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance, which is a trade group in the Seattle area that represents small and medium sized suppliers. J.C., there is of course a lot of concern here in the Washington State area about where Boeing is going to build the 777X, which everybody expects to be launched next month at the Dubai Air Show, 17 to 21
Right.
November. Obviously, Governor Inslee of Washington State is making a huge effort to try to keep the assembly site here at Everett, Washington. There's a big fear that the airplane will be located down at the new Boeing plant in Charleston, South Carolina. From Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance's perspective, how do you assess the odds of the airplane going to one place or the other?
Well, Scott, I would say that in the immortal words of the Vietnam era, we're in a battle for the hearts and minds of the Boeing management at this point. For Boeing, I think it will come down to overall an economic decision, but not necessarily a short-term economic decision. I think they're looking at a combination of everything from the reliability of the labor force, whether or not they can deal with a situation as they've had in the past of fairly frequent strikes and the interruptions to their customers. They'll be looking at the shorter term. Here in the state of Washington, we have an experienced aerospace workforce that we could probably bring a new 777 up faster and guarantee a better product in a shorter time frame. They're going to be balancing those factors as well as all the rest of the equations of building airplanes. One of the things I think is important, though, that we all realize is that the aircraft assembly itself is probably the easiest part of the whole supply chain process to outsource, or not to outsource, but to relocate. And I think that's where Boeing is they believe that they can reduce the 777 assembly to a standard work process that they could put virtually anywhere given enough time to do the ramp up to train the people. We need to convince folks at Boeing that bringing it up faster, being able to guarantee a good product in the short term is of more weight than what they may see as the reliability of the labor force. And of course that can all be enhanced by what the labor unions are doing with Boeing and what level they're dealing. So I'd say in my mind it's almost 50-50 at this point. We believe that Charleston has some advantages, Everett has some advantages, but we can't really predict what's going on inside Boeing's decision matrix.
Well, you talk about the labor force, and of course we know that was a key component as to why Boeing located the second assembly line down in South Carolina. The IAM, the touch labor union here in Everett, has a contract that expires in 2016, or it's amendable, which is just about the time that they'd be starting to really gear up production on the airplane. Charleston, on the other hand, still has an inexperienced workforce. There's still, according to my market intelligence, some QC issues coming out of Charleston. But presumably by 2016, they'll have a much better workforce, be much further along on the learning curve. Charleston is non-union, but of course the unions are going to be trying to organize that plant.
Right.
So it's really kind of a toss-up no matter what you talk about here, isn't it?
It really is, and that's why I personally, and I think we as an organization, hope that Boeing's decision matrix leans towards going with a known quantity where we've proven over the years that we can produce a 777 aircraft and do it quite efficiently. The other aspect of that is the supply chain below aircraft assembly is probably going to remain mostly where it is today. Things always shift around some, but you still have the same main areas for machining, for castings, for all the different pieces of component manufacture. And you've got a great support base here in the Northwest that has supported the 777, 87, all the traditional airplanes. And as soon as you add more distance, you complicate your supply chain questions. Boeing has been good at managing that, but it's another confusion factor in the decision process.
Well, how important is distance really? Airbus has a plant in Toulouse, Hamburg, Tianjin. They're just starting to build a plant in Alabama. Boeing, of course, has the plants here in Everett, Renton, and in Charleston. All of the companies import goods from overseas, Boeing from Japan and China, Airbus likewise. And the distance doesn't really seem to be that much of a critical factor.
It is and it isn't. I mean, in terms of you can do it, a global supply chain is a reality today. At the same time, Boeing encourages, for example, local distribution or finish facilities here in the Northwest to take care of the short-term and immediate problems. I know I've been in a situation where they hesitated to have support for some of their flight line activities and some of the products that they needed. They hesitated to have it in Buffalo because even the possibility of a snowstorm that shut down Buffalo for 1 day or 2 days would have caused them to jeopardize delivery of an aircraft at some point. So they wanted things to stay out here on the West Coast. So it depends a lot upon the commodity, where it's installed, how critical it is, how time critical it is. But like I say, we don't know what the matrix is and how things are weighted, so it's hard for us as outsiders to tell what's going on.
Well, Governor Inslee from Washington State has proposed a number of activities to incentivize Boeing to site the assembly here. Is Washington State doing enough, and if not, what else could it do?
Well, I believe we're trying to do everything that we can visualize to win the 777X. I'm not sure that it's enough. I'm not sure what it would take to have enough to firmly sway that decision. I think the economic things that Governor Inslee has proposed go a long ways to help, but it really, in my mind, offsets some of the things that Charleston and the state of South Carolina have been willing to guarantee all along. I was impressed last week when I attended a meeting where there was a panel from Alabama, South Carolina, and Ohio with the fact that some of their programs involve such things as a single contact for all permitting, so that if you were building in their site, you didn't have to go through King or Snohomish County and the state and the different environmental quality, and we have a hodgepodge of regulatory authorities that they seem to have solved in order to bring work in. Another thing is their education systems. We all think of their education systems as being subpar to what we have in the Northwest. However, they were touting the fact that they have aerospace programs going down as far as middle school that have 99% graduation rates out of high school, that are not going after making every young person an engineer or a scientist, but we're teaching hands-on aircraft mechanic type work at the middle school and high school levels to get these kids involved and to train them up. So we have a competitive threat in the workforce that I hadn't realized existed, that they are very actively addressing what we see as some of the shortcomings in the Southeast.
Well, final question here. We know that Washington is offering incentives. Presumably South Carolina would be offering incentives. So do you think this will come down to a tactical decision for Boeing or a strategic decision for Boeing? And by that I mean a tactical short-term decision that says let's go with the safer bet of the workforce and the experience in Everett, or the strategic long-term decisions where South Carolina is where we want to do this because we want to expand the plant, we want to make this a co-equal partner, presumably, with Everett. Is this going to be tactical or is this going to be strategic?
I think that is the cleverest question you have ever come up with, Scott, because I think that's the real issue here. And I think on a tactical level, I think Everett makes the best sense. I think from a strategic level, you're going to see Charleston grow one way or the other. The 777X may not be the best method for that to happen. You know, it may not happen right now. They may need to digest what they've taken on with the 787 and bring it farther along. Perhaps increase production rates there. They've gotten the nacelle work from Boeing, which is expanding what they're doing. For the long term, I think there will be a strategic decision to expand Charleston to make it co-equal. I'm not sure that the timing is quite right for the 777X to go down there. They're digesting a lot when you look at that workforce and what's moving in there. But it's a long-term trend that we here in the Northwest have to understand and accommodate in some manner.
Thank you, J.C. Hall, the chairman of the Pacific Northwest Aerospace Alliance.